Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. It's
Hello.
always striking late here
Yeah,
and there, wherever you are, maybe
and
early.
everywhere.
Yeah. And hope y'all are doing well. We're going into the holiday season where, it's the blackout times. Nobody
hmm
nobody does anything. So we figured we got a request by one of our patrons, Mr. Met here, Shrimp Tactics Delightfulness, the English spy himself, Charles Van
All the
Ness.
nicknames.
All the
Mhm.
nicknames.
And he just recently played at the Masters, the Pacific Northwest Masters. For those that don't know about the Masters, we've had episodes before. I highly recommend you go check them out. We'll do our obligatory like, subscribe,
Ring the
leave us
bell.
7 words in a sentence in the comments.
Yep.
Tell me about how bad I am in 7 words, like as a person, as a
Ooh.
Warhammer player, as a
Ooh.
painter, and
Ah.
generally as a monotone voiced person, right? So go ahead and for this holiday, your present can be making fun of me in the comments.
Aw.
Especially about the rules that I got wrong in the last episode with the KO
No.
detachment. It was the artifact for the 2d6 redeploy, not the extra movement.
Mm.
Anyway, so now that we've got all the obligatory stuff out there,
Okay.
also obligatory merch thing, blah 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 blah.
Oh shit!
Go to
Yeah,
the
Patreon.
no, 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 cup of coffee. Blah, 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 blah.
Booty
We're
Anyway,
shorts.
back
not
to the fun stuff, Charles.
we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Charles's
hmm
experience at the AOS Masters Pacific Northwest.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, welcome, Charles. It's been a while since you've been on.
hmm
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, I live literally 4 minutes away from Matt, and we do not see each other anywhere near as much as we should.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. It used to be every week he'd come over and
Aw.
beat the hell out of every single army that I had.
hmm
Um,
hmm
amazing player and inventive player, to be
Oh.
honest.
Okay.
I'm gonna riz him up here real quick.
Gas them up.
Uh,
Get him, Matt.
Charles, as at least in my experience, he's for the majority of my time playing against him, he was a I would like to stomp you on turn 2
Okay.
player.
Yeah.
And then the over the last year, I don't think I've ever been so afraid of Charles as a player, because he has chosen to play with this one thing that I think is terrifying, restraint. And it really showed in our last couple of games that we've had.
Oh
So
no. Restraint leads to skill expression.
and this year it brought him to Masters, right? You
Hell
get to play
yeah.
against some of, and let's be honest, we're rising up the whole area here, but like
That's true.
the the top level players in the US essentially,
Yeah. Yeah.
as proven by the US Masters, right?
hmm
So
And by our worlds team having some of them, and then the
mhm.
the Age of Sigmar Masters having a large representation of them. Y'all have made me basically defect and be a fanboy time and time again too. But
Yep.
I gotta ask here though, again, as the outsider, as some of our viewers, maybe from the great state of Michigan, might not know, what qualifies you to get into this tournament, man? Like, what you have to do?
In general, so this is my second time at the Masters, and the first time I
Okay.
kind of cheated.
Oh
Um,
no! Did you
so
tickle Beasley until he surrendered?
Uh, no, I tickled Jeremy,
Oh, that did.
who,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, is the one who organizes this and is a
Mhm.
wonderful human being,
Yeah.
as is pretty
Yes.
much everyone there.
Yeah.
But the way the Masters works is that the Pacific Northwest is broken into 4 regions:
Okay.
North, South, East, and West.
Mhm.
And the majority of the top ranking players are in the West.
Mhm.
South is Oregon, East is Idaho, Eastern
Yeah.
Washington, North is Canada.
You got
And
a
I
little
lived
Posey
in
in there.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
lived in Oregon for about a year. And so
Okay.
I count it as South, and the
Ooh.
top 3 players from each region
Uh,
uh automatically get invited. And so for my first year,
mhm.
I was just the third best player in the South, which was not anywhere near the top 24 players.
Okay.
This year, I actually made the cut. I made 24.
Cool.
Um, so it was an honest entry, which I felt really
All
good
right.
about.
Yeah.
And we'll see why this 24 was accurate in my placing in this event.
Well,
But
well,
essentially, so before we're getting there,
Okay.
so
Okay.
outside of those 12 attendees, there's 12
Mhm.
other spots, and it goes to the top 12 players in
Sure.
the region based on your overall top 5 tournament event scores.
Mm.
So typically, you
Cool.
score more for GTs than
Sure, sure, sure,
RTTs.
sure.
There's more scoring potential, and then the better you score, the higher your points will be in most
Yeah.
kind of tournament circuits. And
mhm.
for me, I think that was. Um, it was something like two 3-2s, two 2-3s, and one very high 2-1 RTT, which
Okay.
got me the spot.
Sure.
And they were all larger events, which gave me more points, which was nice.
Yeah. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. Well deserved. You earned it. You fought your way through. You got it out to all the events. What army did you usually play?
That's what
Uh,
I
Mix
was
it
gonna
up.
go into
so
because this is good. This is
Okay.
good.
Hit me.
every single one of those tournaments was Slanesh.
Yeah,
Ah.
which
All
is
right. That explains some things that I did not have full context for before. Okay. Okay. It's all
Yep.
connecting. All
So
so
right.
this
I
is an uphill battle all the way, right? Like
Yep.
this is
uh
I you gotta understand why I was rizzing him up and razzing him up and giving him all the razzles and the dazzles
Mm-hmm.
ahead of time.
Matt, Riz means seduce, right?
Yeah, I'm seducing
Okay.
him.
Charisma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Just making sure.
Yeah.
I'm seducing him.
Up.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yep.
So one of the things I was talking about Matt with before this tournament even started was, do I change my army for this? Right?
Yes. That
I
was in
was
our Patreon Discord.
Yep. Do I shift over to Zinch? And
Yeah.
I struggled with that for a long time, and it came down to two things. One, my chariots wouldn't have arrived in time for me to paint them.
Oh.
Um, and two, I just don't know the play style well enough. Zinch really plays by denying your opponent tactics. That's how you
Mhm.
win. You can score your tactics just fine, but
Yep.
you have all the
Yep.
shenanigans to deny the tactics, and that's
Yep.
not my play style. I'm not comfortable with it, and so I didn't end up going with that. But for Slanesh, you really have to build lists that depend on average dice, and that's not how I've found you actually win tournaments. It's not building good lists that depend on average dice. It's building good lists that allow for you to succeed even when your dice aren't average. You know,
Mm.
how many ways can you kind of get around failing so that you can
Ah.
still succeed? And Slanesh doesn't have that, which
Mhm.
has been the uphill battle that Matt was talking about.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
they're pretty
that's a very good
unforgiving if
point.
the dice don't roll your way, right?
Hmm.
I'm gonna sidetrack us because we are
Oh,
on an
please.
AS late. You could have always borrowed my army. You know that. I would have got them all ready for
The
you.
secret vault under the mountain
So
outside Helen's.
so
He's got
this
a
is
whole bunker.
this is a mild wag of the finger. This is why I have all these armies.
Hmm
Hmm.
But so now that you've kind of like walked yourself away from Zinch, what did you bring?
Right. So
Yeah. What was this list?
I kept it at 2 drops. I I like the choice. There
Yeah.
was only
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
one. I think there were 2 lists. There was a Nagash list and a Be'lakor list in the original
Mm,
24 that were 1 drop. But
Okay.
outside
That's
of
good
that,
odds. We like these
um,
odds.
and I think I won Prio every round or every game, which was good.
Okay.
But I had 2 regiments. The first one was my general, the Shard Speaker, and she
Okay.
allows me to potentially reduce the save of something in the shooting phase, which
Hmm.
lasts until my next turn, and so you can get a lot of mileage out of it if
Yeah.
it works on a 4-up, which it spoiler, it didn't.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
in that regiment, that's my general's regiment, I also have reinforcing of Slickblade Seekers, very
Mm.
heavy cav, very fast, a lot of damage.
Yep.
mhm.
And then 2 bricks of 20 Blitzbarb Archers. And
Can't
so
leave home without them.
I was bringing weight of dice to this. I was afraid of Night Haunt. I was afraid of OBR. I was afraid of Stormcast, and I was just going to make them fail by making them roll.
Yep.
And
Death
then
by 1,000 cuts.
my second regiment was Keeper of Secrets,
Okay.
who had the Mask in there as the kind of secret hidden hero. The Mask, for those of you that don't know, after deployment, everything's down. You just pick it up and put it anywhere on the table, at least 3 inches away from the opponent.
Did you convert that keeper yourself?
No, the keeper. No, the keeper
Okay.
is from Mr. Matt Davison
Oh,
himself,
the spood,
Oh.
the spooder keeper,
the Spooter Keeper,
spooder keeper.
Okay.
which has always gotten
Matt, did you
most
paint
attention.
that too? painted it?
Yeah, I painted it. I don't know. Did you add anything to that?
No.
It's
You
really
still gotta-
cool either way.
Well, I haven't. I didn't finish the base, so you could like
I don't
put
get
that
your
in your
arm
stuff.
in it?
So
So there's when I
Sure.
get around to the confidence of adding to this beautiful model, I'm
Mhm.
going to add some of the kind of neon tufts in a certain way, grass hanging underneath the
Mm.
Oh,
walls she's on.
sure.
Because the rest of my basing is kind of that same cavern tone with just
Okay,
purple
okay.
tufts coming up, that really Slaneshi purple.
Nice. Okay.
yeah, I can't
And-
believe I matched those bases from memory.
Yep, you did a
That's
good
so,
job.
So wacky.
There you go,
Anyways,
man.
And then-
Anyway.
Rest of that, so there's the Keeper, there's the Mask, and then
Mhm.
there's 2 units of 5 Hellstriders, which are slightly less tanky
Yeah.
cavalry. And then my sub-faction was all cavalry can retreat and charge, no mortals. And because all my
Okay.
cavalry is damage 2 on the charge,
That adds
that's
up.
the only
It's a
thing to
good one.
bring.
Okay.
you're trying to night hunt your way into it, essentially.
If
Yeah,
it
a
works
little
for
bit.
them, why can't it work for him?
Well, because
Yeah.
it's Slanesh. We're about to find out.
Oh, I do wanna briefly mention that there was a list with 10, 20, 40 hex raids in it.
Oh,
God, why? Why? That
who owns that?
That's
many
just
besides
mean.
Matt.
Chris Lemoy.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Chris would have that.
And
Yep.
that
Ooh.
scared me because I have no hope. That was soul crushing to even think about playing. I didn't come near it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the silver line.
Silver lining.
Right. So going in with that list, how did you feel looking at kind of the spread? I mean,
yeah. What was your
everybody
game plan?
there are wonderful opponents, but my goodness, they are all scary, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so the spread, I wrote it down somewhere, but as a general, it was 5 Stormcast players.
Okay.
I think 3 OBR,
Mhm.
3 Slaves to Darkness, although only 2 showed up. We had a number of drops last minute due to health issues and car crashes, and so there was only 20 players.
Car crashes too. That's rough.
We had someone was snowed in coming from middle of Washington, and then 2 of the
Really?
Idaho guys
Yeah.
representing the East. I think there was a car accident or something coming over the mountain,
Oh shit.
and I think it was pretty bad. Like I'm hoping they're doing okay and they're healthy,
Yeah.
but they were not able to make it. So we only had 20
no.
people in this 24-person GT,
Huh.
which actually
Well, it's good that it evened out.
it did even out, and that was good. It meant that I
Yeah.
got paired up 3 rounds in a row. And so because everyone had already played each other at those lower ranks and in the middle, it meant that I couldn't play within my bracket. And so I was almost always
No.
playing someone who had done slightly better than me, which
Uh,
I'm normally fine with. I'm normally at the top of it, but it was random within bracket. And so I was scoring the lowest on every round, hence my overall score, and then playing someone who'd been better than everyone else in my bracket.
That's rough. That's a little rough. It's a little bit of a hill to climb, huh?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Hey man, air that grievance out. We're here for you.
It was reminiscent of the Feast of Blades tournament where I was 1-3 or 2-2 going into the last round, and I'm playing Ricky Fisher with his Trogs, who's a
Shit.
Pacific Northwest
Yeah.
Yep.
genius
Love Ricky.
and world's competitor, and it's like,
Yep.
well, I'm doing so poorly. Why am I playing this good player this far
Yeah.
into the tournament?
Well, I mean, even when it comes down to it, right? Like Feast of Blades and obviously Masters, it was stacked. There were
Yeah.
maybe four like newer players at Feast of Blades, if I remember
Okay.
correctly, from the people that I had
There
on the
were
rosters.
11 golden ticket holders
Yeah,
too at
Yep.
Feast of Blade. It was like silly.
I hate to have done that to you, but it was nuts. And Feast of Blades
Yeah.
just was it was an amazing tournament to run, but I know there was some sadness with the amount of people that got, let's be honest, backhanded by the the crushing
The
players
field
there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Um but yeah.
and so
Okay.
so going back to the kind of who's there, right? We
Yeah.
have a ton of 3-up saves. 3-up saves, very wound dense, 2 to 3 wounds per thing. Um, and they're elite armies, which should be good because I'm a fast army. I can get where I need to. I have enough units to kind of get around the table.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I have to commit to kill anything that's reinforced. I have to commit 2 units plus at least
Mm-hmm.
1 shooting unit.
Yep.
And if my dice don't roll average,
Mm-hmm.
I just bounce off. And that's
Yep.
kind of what kept happening through this game, except for my first game,
Mm-hmm.
where the only thing,
Wow.
I say the only thing I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that stopped me from winning was 3 Aether Wings, because I could not kill 3 Aether Wings.
That's where
That
that came from. Okay.
Yep.
that is how
Wow.
the cookie crumbles with Aether Wings. I mean, at least we're not in
Yep.
second edition still, where Aether Wings were so much more annoying and
Oh my
effortless, right?
God, I love them so much. I own 9. They
But
affect. I used to be able to ally them into my deep kitten, who would do the same thing there for me too. But
yeah,
yes, we're not
most
here to
annoying
talk
things
about
ever.
out. Now we hate Aether Wings.
That's right. Now
Yeah,
we hate
we're,
them.
we're Team Chaos right now. But yeah, all right. All right. So leading into it, what was your pregame ritual?
Yeah.
So I
Well,
do the same exact thing
what do you do? What do you
for
do?
every game day, every club day, every
Okay.
tournament, every time I'm going somewhere for a day of Warhammer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because this is always strike laced, I'll say it's so I don't shit myself during the day.
Oh, sure.
Um,
Yeah.
I drink 3 energy drinks,
Okay.
and I will not say the name unless I know we're sponsored by Ghost or not. Are we?
Not
We're
yet.
not.
All
Not
right,
No.
yet.
so it's not Ghost. It's Monster Energy
I
Rehab
appreciate you.
Peach Tea.
Okay. Yeah. No. Love Peachy Keen. That's me and my wife's favorite monster, actually.
Yep. And
Yeah.
so I drink 3 of those throughout the day, but 2 on the
Okay.
way to the event. And then
Okay.
I go to Starbucks and I get 2 of the sandwiches that are egg white, turkey
Mm-hmm.
bacon,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever the healthiest cheese option they have on it.
So like
You need cheese on that. You
It's
need
supposed to
cheese on
be
that.
the lean version of a sandwich, but it doesn't mess up my guts,
Okay.
which is the
Hey.
most important thing.
Hey, don't
And
want to shit yourself. You're right.
I
yep,
love how you're a hyper specific right up until the choice of cheese. The cheese is like, just give me the healthiest one that'll keep that
I
thing
think
clogged so it
it's
don't leak
I
out,
think
Is it
it's
right? You know,
feta?
Swiss. No,
Oh,
I think it's Swiss
could
that
be
they do.
Swiss. Swiss is a good
Swiss.
option for that. It's
Swiss is
sort
very
of the high
good.
protein
Yep.
cheese.
But as someone who has kind of chronic stomach issues, I have to
Mm.
be super intentional with it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
you
so,
have to.
yep,
Yeah.
because I can't spend, 20 minutes shitting in the middle of round 2, and then in round
Mm-hmm.
3, and then just that
Yeah.
time coming off my clock.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that makes
It's
sense.
true. Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's
And
the
so
hard hitting content people subscribe for right here.
That's right.
I eat the same thing, and then what I do is I listen to one singular album, and the album changes
Ooh.
each time. It's
Okay.
not like me listening to the same thing,
Sure,
but I
sure,
try
sure.
and just focus on something from start until wherever I get to kind of get me in a one whole mindset.
Okay.
'Cause
Nice.
I
normally I
like
listen
it.
to radio or like Spotify radio or something like that, and it jumps
Sure.
around, but that can pump me up, but it doesn't really focus me.
Mm,
So
I
what was
get
your
that.
album? What was your album
Uh,
this time?
Flowbots, no enemies.
Okay.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
We're
Love me
not
some
sponsored by
Flowbots.
Flowbots either.
No, 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 no. I'm just a fan of the band.
But nice. So you got your ritual. You show up. It was in the same place that they were doing Sparkle Party, right?
Yep.
If I remember correctly.
Yep. And
Um,
Okay, that's nice.
so they actually it's at the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars.
Mhm.
And we donate, and so they get a large portion of whatever the proceeds would be for the tournament. But they actually double booked us on the second day, and so
oh,
there was another group who we ended up like just splitting off. They get the kitchen in another area because they just
Okay,
got double booked.
sure.
that'll happen. Also, random side tangent. Shout out to my buddy Chris Kent, who did the mural out front of there. I've been there so
Oh,
many times and I didn't realize that that was his work. Him and I used to
nice.
do mural work in Seattle, and
Huh.
it's so awesome seeing that he did that. So,
Cool.
if you see a mural by the VFW in Ballard area, that's Chris Kent. Look him up. Amazing
Love
artist.
good street art, man. All right. I'm learning more
Okay.
about you, Matt, just by doing this. I don't even know if I need to talk Warhammer anymore. I'm just learning just more random crap about your life. This is great.
You want to hear about some corn? You want to learn about corn? Not the god, just the random plant. I can tell you about that. Random.
Sure.
Anyways, but we're
Anyway,
here. We're here for
let's get
Charles.
Slaneshi with it. Let's get a
Yeah,
little. All right.
we're getting rizzed. I'm holding on to this the whole time.
Uh-huh. Our demographic being 40-year-old fathers are gonna love this and all the dad jokes that are coming up. We're nailing it, guys. We got this
Yeah, we
shit.
got it.
All right, all
We
right.
got it.
Skibbity, skibbity something or other.
No, not the toilet, not the Ohio Riz. All right. No, I'm mentoring like some teenagers through some theater shit. I'm learning all this shit. I'm like, you did not. That I thought that was an internet joke.
Nope, no,
Ah,
it's all real. It's all real.
no, it is. But
Terrifyingly real.
back to the fun stuff for a second. Charles, tell us about your game one, man.
Yeah.
So I was feeling really good about my game one. So my game
Okay.
one was into Stormcast.
Yeah.
And it had the typical six Vanguard Paladors with hand axes. It had
Mhm.
six long strikes. But the rest of the list was slightly atypical. It had Bastion,
Okay.
it had Celestant Prime,
Mhm.
it had a unit of Aether Wings, and it had six Prosecutors.
Okay.
And
Oh,
Prosecutors.
sounds like something I'd run myself. I like that. Okay. Okay.
probably something else that I'm forgetting.
Sure.
Um, but what happened is he deploys on the line, and then he
Mhm.
uses Bastion's pregame move to move Bastion, Celestant Prime, and the Prosecutors up.
Celestin Prime wasn't in the sky to start. Okay.
Yeah, that's a
I
little
am
strange.
interested.
Uh, and I think he was thinking that I would give him first so
Yeah.
that I could try for the double because I have a pretty deadly double with the shooting and all that jazz.
Mhm.
Sure. But
And
why?
so what happened is he moves the Celestant Prime and Bastion right into the center,
Uh-huh.
and by the end of my turn, there's no more Bastion or Celestant Prime. They're gone.
Okay.
Um,
Anytime
So,
Bastion dies, I'm a happy man.
Yep.
I hate that guy so much.
and
it
Celestin Prime getting popped, man. That's okay.
so the big thing that kind of swung it was that my keeper has a heroic cheddar artifact that on an unmodified 8 up on the charge it strikes first.
Okay.
And so I was able to strike first with my keeper, and then
Nice.
my Slick Blade Seekers, who are reinforced and all these extra attacks and all of that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I just cleared them. And then I did a lot of damage to the prosecutors on the side. I shot them. I put some Hellstriders into them, and I was
Okay.
feeling really good.
Yeah.
And then he counters and he charges his Paladors in. He shoots me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing okay. He started with his the Vanguard Raptors on the table. I don't know if he's put anything in the sky.
Hmm.
Again, I'm still confused by the Celestin
I don't know if
Prime.
he put anything in the sky.
Okay. He was
Uh,
that you got him in deployment, man, thinking you were gonna give him first turn with all this shit right there in shooting range.
Yep. So one of the cheeky things
Yeah.
I did that should have told him I was going to take first,
Uh-huh.
realistic, is that I put the mask
Yeah.
in the woods 3 inches away from his Vanguard Raptors. so that he
Mm-hmm.
couldn't be targeted by covering fire and he would charge right in. Now, he didn't
Hmm.
do anything. He did literally nothing to them.
Yeah.
But, and they can retreat and shoot. But I had the hope
Yeah.
and the dream, and he should have known that I would have taken first with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it doesn't matter because he still beat me at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
So,
so I'm in
So
this.
the bones of the plan are there, though, Charles. This
I
is a successful-ish start.
so I had a near like flawless turns, 1, 2, 2.5. I'm doing really well.
What was
I'm
the battle
outscoring
plan? Do you
you.
remember?
Yes, this was better part of Valor, and I have no idea
Okay.
what the underdog thing does.
Sure, I can
But
look it up.
uh, I
And
wanna.
neither do you use discretion, so the saying just gets thrown out the window.
Yeah. Let me tell you what the round scoring was for this because it was ridiculous.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, man.
so we went 10-8, me to
Okay.
him, 20
Yep.
to 14,
Okay.
28 to 20, 30-30. I was tabled
30-30.
30-30. I was tabled before four, so I
Ooh,
score 2 points to tie
buddy.
at 30-30, and then he
Yep.
goes 30 to 38. He wins,
Damn.
and
was
so
it
That
I
is a
the
blew
barn burner.
I blew an 8 point lead because I had to get my battle tactic of killing Vanguard Raptors and Aetherwings, and they were right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
hmm,
I do all my shooting, and it kills all but one Vanguard Raptor, and then there's these three Aetherwings right next to it. I charge in 2 Slick Blades and 20 Bliss Barb Archers into both, and I say, I need to kill these fuckers.
Mm-hmm.
I go first with the Slick Blades. They split their attacks. They do maybe 1 damage to the Aetherwings, and they kill the Vanguard. And so I have to do 5 damage with 20 Bliss Barb Archers in combat, and I did like 2. Statistically, I threw over 20 dice at them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, some of them were Rend 1, 2 damage from the Slick Blades.
Sure.
All of the Bliss Barb Archers were exploding 6,
Yep.
and
And
I
this
did.
and this is into which unit again?
And this is just into the Aetherwings at this point. All of this was into the Aetherwings, and I could not kill
With,
them.
within do they even have an armor save?
Uh, they have a 6 with them.
yeah, which
Yeah.
is
So,
negated by the Bliss Barb Archers. So, right?
uh, no,
You don't have red on Bliss Barbs these days?
no, Bliss Barbs don't have it in combat.
Oh, in
Oh, in
combat.
combat,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
So this was in
Yep.
combat.
Yep. Then do
And
it.
so what happens is I fail my tactic. I don't have to go down 4 points, and then
Uh-huh.
my 2 remaining units are stuck in combat
With it.
as he wins the roll off and kills me. I can't covering fire, which would have saved me. I can't rally. I can't redeploy, and I would have had full CP. And so I just sat there
Charles.
as he wiped out my units, and then he
Oh,
has to win in the last turn because we were tied at 4 with me being tabled.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a game, man. Wow.
So how did you lose the keeper?
So I charged the keeper and the Slick Blades in first,
Uh-huh.
and then his first battle tactic was to kill the keeper in melee.
So
Okay.
everything went in, and the Paladors.
So the
Got it.
Paladors went
Fair.
in. His Vanguard Raptors were able to retreat out and shoot.
Yeah.
And so I lose the keeper, and then I take out his
Okay.
Paladors in response, but they just come back. Come back.
Yeah, we
at
had a half a
health.
unit.
Yep,
Yeah.
behind my lines as
Yeah.
you do.
As you do. Yep.
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 And
As is the
so
way these days.
yep, yeah.
No,
I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And then I watched my dice as I roll, 15 attacks, exploding
Yeah.
6s, hitting on 3s, and
Yeah.
10 of them are 1s and 2s.
For those listening and not seeing the video, my jaw literally dropped. I had to hold it in my hand for a bit. God damn, dude.
And so, like I said, my army works well on average dice.
Yeah.
Sometimes the dice are an average.
I want to tell
That's
stories.
how it goes.
And that story was a very valiant effort by those Aetherwings to hold you up long enough.
Yep.
And the twist for better part of Valor is each time an enemy unit contesting an objective is destroyed by a friendly non-hero unit contesting the same objective, your friendly unit gains the dominant keyword, where as long as you're on that objective, you count as 10, you add 10 to your control scores. And also add 1 to hit rolls for combat attacks made by the units in the underdog's army that target the dominant unit there.
Yep.
So
A little bit of a give and take underdog for that one.
it is.
Yeah.
So all right, so we opened with a heartbreaker.
Open with a heartbreaker, but I'm still feeling good because I felt like I dominated the game. I didn't dominate the
Yeah.
game. I
Come
did
on,
really well in that game.
you took out 700 points of heroes to open the game up and messed up a bunch of other stuff.
Yep.
And
So I felt. Oh, go
it's
ahead.
not like, you made the wrong plays, right?
No.
Maybe in retrospect, you had a way of getting out of the battle tactic, but for all intents and purposes, that battle tactic should have been taken had average dice been rolled, right?
Mhm.
So like it's not like that was bad. That's war games, man. That's dice, right?
Yeah.
It's the way she goes.
Yep.
So that's not bad. I get it. I get it.
I don't
I'm
know.
feeling it.
Okay.
So I was feeling
Dusting
good.
off. Dusting
Yeah.
And
off.
the thing about, this tournament and there being 20 players is that of the 10 people who lost, they're all still incredibly good. And so
Yep.
losing doesn't really mean I have an easier opponent next round.
No. And again, this is the your masters for your region. Every opponent here is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
No, don't underestimate anybody. But yeah, all right, keep going, Charles.
And so round 2, I'm bringing up the rankings because I want to see something.
Okay.
Um, so round 2, I play into Bryce, and I know very little about Bryce. He plays pretty much a different army each time, and I've
Mm-hmm.
only gotten to met him kind of in passing.
Okay.
Bryce was ranked 5th for the entire region going into this tournament,
Yep.
and
Okay.
he does his scores. He 98, these are all out of 100 for his tournaments. 98, 94, 88, 90, 88. So top 6 for every
Okay.
single tournament GT he played in.
Okay.
Brutal.
Got
Brutal.
some heat coming.
So he was doing Cities with Sigmar and
Oh.
all the goodies. He had a sorceress, 20 blocks of executioners, a reinforced dark riders. He
Okay.
had a rune lord and reinforced hammers.
Yep.
He had
Don't leave home without him.
nope, he had a battle mage, 10 fusiliers, 10 wilder core, and
Good
he
screen.
had his general was Callus and Toll and the companions. And the fun tech with that is that they drop down from the sky and then they can give the human order to do a 3-inch move. And
Yep.
so they drop 9 away and then they move up to 6 away for shooting and charging and whatnot.
Yep.
And so
Learned that with our buddy Mason on this channel.
They're
Yep.
so criminally undercosted right now. I'm ready for them to go
Yes.
up in points. I know I say it every episode, but I'm ready for them to go up in points.
I'm only just waiting to see what the battle. It's not out yet at the recording of this. If it dropped,
It
laugh
should
at
be
me
in
later.
2 days from after we record this.
Allegedly. But yes.
Allegedly,
Allegedly.
except the articles said that, but allegedly.
It's a legend. It's a legend until it's in our hands.
They've
on our
they've
computer
delayed it
screens,
before.
Yep.
before our eyeballs.
Sure.
Yeah.
So round 2, Battle for the Pass, which is I always say sideways border war.
Yes.
It's 4
Mhm.
objectives. You have to
agree.
push into the enemy's territory to score max.
Yep.
It's hard to score early tactics because you can't take the flanks on it unless you have some shenanigans. And I outdropped him because he's Cities of Sigmar, so he was having a
like 3 or
ridiculous
4
amount of
drops or
yeah.
something silly. Yep.
And what I should have done is just play back and shoot him and retreat and shoot him and retreat and shoot him and then try and pick up points turns 4 and 5. That is what I should have done in retrospect. What I did is I took top of 1, I charged directly into his hammers with my reinforced slick blades.
Not the hammers.
So
you were using shrimp tactics, weren't you?
So I want you to imagine this. Imagine this for me.
I'm with you.
All my buffs on the slick blades. They have 41 attacks. I give them all attacks, so 2s and 4s. Rend 2 because of anti-infantry. 2 damage. Crit mortals. And then the horses
charging down the plains here. Tongues are flying, lances are going, screams are shrill.
I killed like 14 of them. That's it. That's all I got. I did all my attacks. I did all my buffs. On average, I'm supposed to do about like 36
Oof.
30
damage.
something. Yeah.
Yep. Um,
Did
The
I
five up
touch your
war.
dice before this tournament or
Did
something?
you,
What's
man?
going
no,
on?
in fact, I kept my dice away from you for this
Yeah.
Oh,
tournament.
there you go.
I did not bring my tournament dice the last time I
Okay.
played you, and it didn't help.
And just to know, Matt does not touch the jerseys before they go out, so the good luck still stays on him from when Jack
Yes.
touches them. That's very important to say here.
Yes.
Uh,
He
but
does
yeah,
touch the
man.
booty shorts so that you can't get lucky.
That's right. That's right.
Love it. Love it.
So basically,
Yeah.
I charge in. I do not kill the hammers. All I wanted to do was kill the hammers. If I
Yeah.
can kill the hammers and tie up a unit of executioners,
Yeah. What were the
uh,
executioners? Were they just not in a good position to dump into them? Was it
no.
like,
So
what
they
was
were
it?
behind. One unit was behind the hammers, and the other was
Okay.
kind of to the side of that, but
Okay.
way too far away. Because
All
you
right,
can
fair
be,
enough.
40 inches away and still competitively placed on Battlefield Pass.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
fair. That's
so
fair.
I do tag one unit of executioners so they can't charge and get the extra crit mortals against me, or the
Okay.
crits on fives,
That's good.
for
That's
the next
good.
turn, which is great, except the other unit gets the 3d6 charge spell off for the next turn and charges into my
Oh,
keeper and wipes it. And
oh
then
no.
I'm in combat, I'm stuck, I'm not able to move, and Callus and Toll are behind me harassing my archers.
Yep, and they'll pop your wizard by accident because of the
Yep.
double damage into that.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
all she wrote.
Yep. And
Okay.
so into two, I think I only had like two Hellstriders and my two units of 20 archers, and then that was it. That was it.
Oh,
It didn't.
buddy.
Were you able to at least like continue getting points, or at that point were you just like, eh? How
Um.
are you doing
So
mentally at this point, right? Because you're
Yeah.
still going for points in
I'm
Masters, right?
still going
Yeah.
for points, and
Okay.
that let's okay. The total score for this round
Yeah.
ended being, I can pull this up because I still have it.
And
The
like that
total
that
points were 47 to 16.
oof.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah.
So I did
Okay.
two 7-point turns, and then I got 2 points somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yep, because I just had one of the side objectives,
Yeah.
and then I could do nothing out after that. And so for all of this, I'm trying really hard to maximize my points because of overall ranking.
Mhm.
Now, overall
Mhm.
ranking is important in general because I want to rank higher, and I don't want to be the last place person at this event.
Yeah.
Um, but also, what we learned after the fact is that the Pacific Northwest team
Uh-huh.
is an application process this year. So it's not just the top 8 players, or it's not just the top few players from the different clubs.
Okay. Okay.
Everyone who qualified for the event and everyone who showed up, because not it's apparently not the same list, uh,
Sure.
gets to apply, and then it's based off your ranking at this event, your ranking at other events, your ranking in general, and then your kind
Okay.
of team fit. And so
Mhm.
Sure.
scoring not last would have been slightly better than scoring being
Yeah,
last,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
right?
I'm
Um,
smelling what you're stepping in here. I
um,
got you.
and I was joking through it because they didn't tell us that like what the criteria would be at, and I was just saying, they're gonna say that the criteria to apply is just be top 19 at this event.
No.
Uh,
Yes.
I think
Um,
so. So in
Yeah.
retrospect, you kind of already knew that you shouldn't have Charlesed it, and you should have Nuo Charlesed it, right?
mhm,
Played
yep,
that patient game, the one that you've gotten really, really good at. So
mhm,
Yeah.
kind of a learning experience, and that list
Yeah.
is really rough. Like he's got speed, he's got teleport.
Yeah.
He's an amazing player, obviously. And just executioners being as the relief counter charge, like
It's really
that
good,
makes sense, yeah. And that's especially rough for Slanesh, right?
mhm,
Yeah.
Especially and like especially with like the speed reduction overall in the army. The army
Mhm.
is not a fast army anymore. It's not
No.
fast like it used to be. The fact that Paladors can outrun, the entire Slanesh army is still disturbing to me.
mhm,
So that battle plan is actually a lot harder for an army that wants to be faster, right?
Mhm.
yep.
So yeah, I mean, I, Cities are good. Cities are good
Yeah.
too.
They are. They
Uh,
are. We got a deep roster with a lot of units. It's a really competitive list.
yeah. And so
Oh,
this is the when you're talking like where am I at mentally? The first game
yeah.
I lost, but I personally I felt like I won that one. I did the right things. I
Yes.
was rewarded for it, except I wasn't. This game, I immediately knew, oh, I fucked up.
Mhm.
And
Okay. We like the
so
recognition though.
now I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, what do I do for the rest of this tournament? Do I go with my gut? Do I stay back? Do I play
Mm,
reserved? Um,
okay.
and it starts getting in my head.
Oh no.
And it gets in my head to the next round, which is the worst combination of things for someone in their head, last game of day three, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the battle plan limited resources,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
uh, which is
It's
terrible.
brutal. It's
It's
It
brutal.
is.
terrible. No one practices it because it's so bad, and then you
Yep.
play it in tournaments, and it's so bad still. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
No, that does not
the
stop being bad.
the reason that it's particularly bad for Slanesh is that there's four sizable terrain pieces right in the center of the board.
Yep.
Mhm.
So they're sizable, they're right there, and so it blocks my charging, it blocks my shooting paths. I
Yep.
have to maneuver in a certain way just to get anywhere, or I have to stay completely back. And I'm
Mhm.
playing against Corn. And for those
That
of you that don't know, Corn can do their movement shenanigans to basically threaten me at 12 inches. So if I'm 12 inches
Yep.
or closer, they can get into combat with me before I can shoot. They can get
yep.
into combat with me before I can charge, which I need for my charge damage. And
Mhm.
there's no way for me to maneuver on this table in a way that isn't that I can engage with the bloodthirsters. So Scarbrand bloodthirsters, um, Skull Taker, Chaos Warriors, Claws of Karanak, really tanky units.
Mhm.
Um, and then the two bloodthirsters. And ideally, what I do is I shoot the bloodthirsters or bloodthirster and Scarbrand off the table while
Yeah.
not engaging anything else,
Mhm.
so that I
Yeah.
don't give them blood
Perfect
paths too
world.
early. Perfect
Yep.
world. I can't do that. There's no way for me to do that. And
Yeah.
I start losing my points early because I feel like I'm forced to double. So I give him the first turn.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, he smartly doesn't touch certain points, gets in a position where he's going to score as much as he
Mhm.
can. And then when I go, I'm not able to get the charges I need. I fail my battle tactic because I'm not able to kill two units. Um, because I failed my charge into Skull Taker with my buffed up Slick Blades, who have a free reroll. I can't do what I'm doing, and so I'm getting like 4 points, maybe 6 points, because I'm on three instead of two.
Sure.
Mhm.
Sure. Sure.
And I feel forced to double because now everything can come right into me. I didn't do what I needed to do.
Mhm.
Yep.
But when you double on limited resources, you immediately sap all of your objectives because
Yep.
you've held them for two
Yeah.
turns in a row. And
Yep.
so now
Yeah.
I'm playing with only three objectives and I'm down on points and
Mhm.
I can't get into his bloodthirst or I can't get into Scarbrand
Yep. And no battle tactic because you took the
and no
double.
battle tactic. And
Yep.
so
Wow.
uh, there
So,
was not a ton of options for me.
in
Ah.
retrospect, do you think not doubling, you would have been able to get a battle tactic or something? Was there anything on the field or like anything in retrospect that you think you could have done maybe a little differently?
Not
Uh,
fail my charge.
I mean, yeah, that
Yeah, I
could just
mean,
be it, man. You know.
No. So realistically, I think I still had a double. It
Mhm.
wasn't totally over at that point, but I don't think I could have won um
Okay.
without it.
mm,
And even failing to do what I needed to do turn two, um, the big thing that got me is that he used my depravity dice to do a 12-inch charge into my bliss barbs,
Ah.
or
yeah.
12-inch counter charge. And so, for those of you
Mhm.
that haven't experienced the changes to depravity dice or temptation dice, it is
Mhm.
statistically unlikely for someone to get a 12-inch charge now. You roll the dice, and on a one or a two, it becomes that. And so, statistically, there's a 2 in 3 chance that you don't get the 12-inch charge.
Yep.
So
Statistically.
so I think the running theme so far has been the dice just don't abide right now, huh? I think that's what it is. The dice are just not abiding, and
the
it sounds rough. That sounds pretty rough.
the
Yep.
yep. So the theme really is, and it goes back to my list building and like, what does competitive list building look like? I can't
Mm.
rely on average dice. I have to kind of look
Yeah,
at
you got to
what
build
do
in
you.
rerolls. You got to build in redundancy. You got to build in
Yep.
pluses to hit or wound.
Hmm.
And when you're
Hmm.
wounding on fours too, which is something that's honestly shook me with my elf armies that I've loved to play
Yep.
consistently. But,
Hmm.
I can't get my deep kit on 2 and 2s anymore from all the buffs and crap I used to be able to throw at them.
Hmm.
Hmm.
What if I'm wounding on fours? It's the great equalizer. It was the
Hmm.
curse of corn, Jack Ballard would say with his Blood Warriors back in the day.
Yep.
You know, how
Yeah.
do you
That
how do you get around that?
Well, I mean, there's like, so there are ways to get around it, and that comes down to list building, like Charles was
Yes.
saying, right? So if you're doing like one of the reasons executioners are so good, they crit, right? If you build
Yeah.
into a crit, you can negate a lot of those wounds, right? If you crit
Yep.
wound, you crit mortals, stuff like that. That is a mitigation, but you still are wounding on 4 and ups.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it's why we don't see any of the 4 and up wound stuff being taken much in competitive lists in general, really, right? Unless
Yeah.
it's for a very specific reason. So
Well,
it's an interesting time to be a competitive
it
player, I
is.
would say.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So
again, these are lessons we're learning. You learn
Mhm.
more in defeat than you do in victory.
yep. So I learned a lot this weekend. Um, so that was the first one I got paired up into.
It wasn't the
Um,
setup I was going for, but I do appreciate the
that's
joke.
yeah.
That was a good one. That was a
Uh,
good one.
Hey,
so
you got
I
to
got
roll into it.
so I was paired up into that matchup just because of how things worked out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so next up we're going into round four. So it's the next day.
Sure.
I didn't sleep well because I'm like, well, I'm just losing a lot. Uh,
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of, and I'm like, I know around who's the bottom bracket. I know who I may be playing.
Hmm.
It's a bunch of people I get along with well. So I'm thinking, okay, can I just
Have
enjoy the
fun.
day? Like, can I
Yeah.
just have fun? Normally, um, normally when I've been losing a lot for the first day of a tournament, for a
Hmm.
2 day tournament, I try and think of it as two different tournaments. I had a 3 game
Yeah.
tournament and then a 2 game tournament.
I like that. I
And
like that.
how can I do the best? Can I go 1-1 today? That's a
Mhm.
Yeah.
50-50 on it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I got placed into Michael Toons playing OBR, who is a contender for the world championship, who was on the Pacific Northwest
I
team.
said, what's he doing at 0-3?
Yeah, so he's not 0-3 is the
He's 1 and
problem.
2.
He's 1-2, and I'm 0-3. Um,
Ooh. What's he doing at 1 and 2? What did
it
you all do to each other at this event, man?
I
he did a weird list. It shook me. Like it
Yeah.
hurt hard, but it was not his typical list. So what he did,
Okay.
he brought Catacross, which is a given, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He brought Archon, so already shaking it up.
Okay.
He brought an Ossifactor. He brought 2 catapults, 2 Archai, and 5 horses. And that's his entire list.
I mean, the catapults have been showing up in random lists here and there, so
They're
I
so
could,
good.
but
They're so
Like,
amazingly good.
and they're
and they
good
make
into
great
you with your
speed
5 up
bumps.
saves.
Yep.
So it doesn't even none of the damage. I mean, the damage matters.
Yeah.
The damage
Yeah.
didn't matter in this game. So
Okay.
I he we're
Wow.
going right into it. I take top of one because he's this tiny footprint, and I think
Mm-hmm.
I can get right in there.
Pit
Oh,
his
what's your
ass
battle
in
plan? What's your
there.
battle plan?
The battle plan is focal points, and so I want
Ah.
to tie him up so I can score the sides and then just hold it
Yeah.
with my chaff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and two things get in the way of my plan. One, he places one of his endless spells, countercast it right in the center of the lane, so I
Mhm.
can't fit both of my hammer units. I can't fit the keeper and the slick blades through.
Okay.
So I had to send the keeper wide, doesn't make the charge, and I do the slick blades. The slick blades he counter fires, covering fires with the catapult,
Mhm.
and gives them strike last.
That would do it.
Yep.
And so now I'm in a position
Heavy
where
shooting phase. Deathly barrage. I'm looking right at the war scroll. Yep.
yep, So it's in this position where I either don't charge and just get wrecked anyway, or
Yeah.
I do charge and hope to survive
Hmm.
and hope that I can do something.
We'll
Uh,
charge at the light brigade there. Okay.
and I did not. I did not do something.
Oh
Um,
no.
so in combat with everything,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
had my reinforced slick blade striking last, and I had my mask, who had
Okay.
positioned to take out his ossifactor. Because if he doesn't have the hero, the catapults kind of suck.
Yeah.
Uh,
Get
or
rid of that +1
it's a striking
to
last.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
And so I go in with the mask. I have 9 attacks, threes and fours, rend one, 2 damage. I do 4 wounds. Um, and then I'm tied up with
Buddy.
everything.
Yep.
And he kills my slick blades down to a wound with the ossifactor before I could
In
use my last guy to try and knock that one wound off with crit mortals.
Wow.
in
Um,
melee?
in melee, he killed me in melee. He did 4 wounds to me in melee against my slick blade.
Man,
Um,
that's only got 3 attack crit 2 hits, but yeah.
yep.
Damn.
It was rough.
Yeah.
And so he kills me to a wound, and even then I'm doing okay. I still have my keeper. I still have 1600 points on the table. I score 10 points. He's not going to
Sure.
score max because he's kind of in there.
Hmm.
And then he gets aggressive with Archon to try and pin my archers. I counter into him and
Okay.
I knock Archon down to 3 wounds remaining.
Okay, that's good.
Um, Most of my stuff is still out. I'm on the flanks, but I didn't kill Archon. And
Yeah.
Catacross is right there, and all my stuff is in combat. And I
Hmm.
have a choice.
Mhm.
I can either power through with the keeper and try and do those 3 damage and hope that he doesn't get any wards, and then
Ooh.
peace out. But
Yeah.
I couldn't move the keeper anywhere because it doesn't fly, so it's kind of stuck where it was.
Hmm.
Oh. Okay.
Or I
Okay.
can save my 1 CP and
Hmm.
covering fire.
Ooh, that's a rough choice.
So
Yeah.
I said I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna covering fire. I have these 12 archers right next to him. It'll be
That's weight of
fine.
dice right there.
Yep. Um,
Yeah.
and what happened is I rolled the hypothetical dice after three
Uh-huh.
mortal wounds. He rolled his hypothetical wards, no save, so it would have killed him.
Of
Hmm.
course.
Uh, so you have to roll it to feel bad about yourself.
Yep, yep, yep.
And then he
I view it as like practice, right?
okay,
It's the
Mhm.
thing where it's like, okay, did I make the right decision or not? Right? Like
Alternate
I do that
universe
all the
me.
time.
What are we
Like
doing? Yeah.
I know in our
and
games we do that all the time.
yep,
Okay.
And so like it always no, it's not always, but it's like 50-50. It was like, nope, that was the right decision. That would have swung this, that would have
yep.
swung that, right? So
So
Okay. But
I
yeah.
find
so
that's a good thing to do.
so what happens is into his turn, Archon starts casting spells, and Archon heals every
Mhm.
time he successfully casts a spell. And he got one or
Yeah.
two, and then he retreated out of combat, and he can fly.
Hmm.
So he was able to get far enough away from my shooters that I was just like, oh, this was a waste. I can't
Hmm.
do anything. And then Catacross charges into me, and the Archai charge into me, and he shoots me with catapults,
Yeah.
and that's that.
Yep. That'd do it.
Yeah. And focal
Anti-infantry on catapult shooting is a hell of a drug.
And
focal
so,
points is really, really always like a good mission for OBR too. It's always worth
Yes.
stating that like focal points is their bread and butter. Like
yeah,
them
you
and corn, you don't want to be up against in focal
yeah,
points.
because you can just stay in like a 12-inch triangle, hitting
Yep.
3 objectives and getting whatever it is, max points.
Yep. And
Yeah.
that's for
Effectively.
every castle army. Write that down, dear listener and viewer.
Yeah,
That's the way you go about that battle plan specifically. If you can play in that castle, maintain your buffs, maintain your debuffs out in whatever aura, whether it's Catacross giving out +1 to save or hit or whatever crazy ridiculous he does these days in that war scroll, you can just control your 3 objectives in that triangle. It's just so rough to bust through.
Yeah. And at that point, like you're not playing their game, you're making sure they're playing yours, right? Once you have those
Yeah.
three down, and if you have a castle army, that mission is specifically good for very castly builds or very good like revivable builds, which
Mm.
is OBR in a nutshell, right? So yeah, that's like one of the scariest opponents on that mission.
Yeah.
But
So no shame in that one, man.
So no shame in that one. It does really like reflecting me being tied up in combat is the worst thing for me because my saves are non-existent.
yep.
Yeah.
And
T-shirt
he's
saves.
yep, and he's most of these armies have ways of turning off wards or reducing wards, and so even the
Yeah.
keeper's 5-up ward means nothing.
Uh,
Um, and so like, oh,
what is it for OBR with it? Is it a spell for them?
yeah, they have an
Right?
endless spell that has a 12-inch aura of -1
Yeah.
ward, which is
Mhm.
ridiculously
It's
good.
either the Shrieker or the Bird. I forget which model, but
It's
I
the
just
Shrieker.
Yeah.
it just it finally is scary enough,
Yep.
in my opinion. In a world where they changed all the good ward saves to be a 5-up, you feel it. You feel it.
Yep.
And that being said, it sounds like that was a mission of like, you know, almost trusting your gut, which it sounds like at that point you were kind of back and forth on. Is that
Yeah.
correct thinking?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, usually you have the right idea.
Yeah. And so this was another one where I saw this slight opportunity to charge in early and kill the Ossifactor. Said, I'm going to take first turn. I
Yep.
can pin him. I can
Yeah.
hopefully take out his hero. I can do some damage. Um, Realistically, I sit back, I play for the double, and I don't
Mhm.
expose myself, and I do enough that I kill maybe everything but the heroes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then
And you
fine.
rally up the archers that get blown away by the catapult. And you play off from that.
Yep. And so that was what I should have done.
Yeah.
But hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
Uh, and which brings us to the last round.
Yeah.
And the last round, we had one drop. And so one
Oh.
player there were two of us that were 0 and 4.
Okay.
Um, one player got to play against Jeremy as the TO, and
Okay.
one player had to get paired up. And it was random. And so even though I was at the bottom of the list, I got paired
Uh-huh.
up again. Um,
Oh.
and I got paired up into Nurgle, which
That's an interesting one.
ye
Um, okay.
I
What was the battle plan? What was the battle
so
Yeah.
plan?
the
Walk me
battle
with the
plan
battle plan here.
was close to the chest with
Okay.
6
Okay.
objectives, which should be good for me, right?
Depending on
Yeah.
the Nurgle build,
I
right?
do
It
if it's
depends on
like
the Nurgle
flies,
So
build.
deep striking, and grabbing shit, we have some issues. But all
so
right.
Yeah.
the problem with the Nurgle build is it was Rotigus, Great
Uh-huh.
Unclean One, 2
Uh-huh.
units of Plague Bearers,
Uh-huh.
a unit of Plague Drones,
All
two
demons. Okay.
two beasts, and Slimex. Oh, and
Growing the
the and
tree.
the and the Bagpiper.
Oh, sure, sure,
Oh, good
sure,
old
sure.
Sloppity.
Yep.
Love a good sloppity bile piper.
And so basically, all he had to do was put
Uh-huh.
one big monster on 2 of the back objectives,
Yep.
each,
Choose which
so
one you
that I
wanted.
can never get full points
Yep.
because even if I make him re-roll it because I'm the underdog, he just puts it on the other one that has one. And then the rest of his army flips between 2 of my 2 objectives to make sure that he's getting more, things like that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it came down to a lot of close rolls because I'm still
Mhm.
mobile. I still have a lot of shooting.
Yeah.
Uh, he rolled hot on his early boards, but really
Mhm.
poorly on his late game boards. But at that
It,
point, it
it,
wasn't
it evens
helping
out
me.
eventually. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
the hardest thing is that he denied my first tactic by
Oh.
countercharging into my mask, who has a 4-up ward,
Yeah.
and killing it with plague drones, which is statistically unlikely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your
They
first
don't even
tactic?
really
What
have that
what did
many
you call out?
attacks.
Take the flanks.
Oh.
And so
Okay.
he killed my unit on the flank.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, that's not a bad tactic to call for that either. That's
I mean, dice shouldn't work out that way. And I thought that
yes.
I pulled off the objective, and so I thought what he may do is try and redeploy onto the objective so that I don't score
Okay.
max.
Sure.
But he didn't redeploy, and then oh well, mistakes were made.
Yeah.
But even with a 4-up ward, I should have left, and
Yeah.
I died to the wound. Uh, that's all of my
Oh,
dice did this weekend.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So this one, in retrospect, was there anything else that you think would have swung it a little bit further in your
Yeah,
direction.
so I went in through the left flank, so he had Rodriguez, Horda guy, 10 plague
Mhm.
bearers behind a
Mhm.
forest and then behind a place of power. And so
Okay.
every turn he was hitting place of power with both his big demons.
Oh,
Mm,
Um,
sure.
which he doesn't care if he takes the mortals, it doesn't matter to
No.
him.
yeah.
No.
And so because of how it was, I tried to go in through the left with my slick blades with a unit of shooting,
Mhm.
and the force didn't matter that much, but I just couldn't pass through to do the
Mhm.
damage. I Horticulus lived with like 5 wounds remaining because I didn't do any
Mhm.
mortals, and then I didn't do any mortals on the next charge, the
Mhm.
Rodigus. Like I rolled
Okay.
29 dice, I rolled 1 6, things like that.
Yeah, and
Uh,
if they're
and the
spiking on
The
their
wards.
words.
words
Yep.
Yeah.
early, that's the thing, right? When it like Rocco was saying, like it evens out over the battle, but like if you're spiking early on saves, that's the best time to be doing it, right?
Yeah. Start early
Because
because
like
then by the end they run out of models to hit you back at.
right, so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds a little punishing to yeah, that sounds a little rough.
Yep.
Sounds a little bit rough.
Little excessive, Slanesh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, it was fun to have a god off at the end of the game.
Love a
And you
god
don't get to
off.
play Nurgle a lot,
Okay.
so it's not super popular in our meta, and so it was nice to play against
Really?
them. Uh, but
Okay.
also, like, my weight of dice matters a little less when everything is just very stinky and very postulant.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. They thank you for popping the pustules and getting a little bit more of that literal
Yep.
elbow grease out into the world.
Yep. Oh, and he kept rolling 4s on his D3 to do disease to me because of the +1 subfaction. And so he
Sure.
Yep.
roll a 3, 4, 4, and I have no
Yeah.
wards on most of my stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. Just out here in t-shirts and nipple rings, baby. That's just
hmm
Um
Uh,
I, it Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
all right.
Charles.
So end up 0 and 5, and so does another individual because
okay.
he lost the bye round. And the way it was in Masters is you had to earn your win if you got played into the bye,
Sure.
um, which is fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
fair enough.
and so we both lost. We both went 0 and 5, and it just came down to points. And he had one very high scoring game somewhere in his weekend that meant that I was like 10 points under him or something like that. And so I won the coveted wooden spoon trophy
Mm.
Now, do you
that
have this trophy?
I have this trophy. Not only do I have it, if I chip away all of the paint, it actually says Pacific Northwest Masters second place because uh it was a misprint. They sent him a
Mhm.
misprint, and then he was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get the new one in time, and then they did, and so he's like, all right, I'm gonna paint on this one. So it's a crystal statue that's
Yeah.
painted white, and then he
Yeah.
drew on it a little wooden spoon.
Oh,
But
that's
if I
funny.
chip away the paint, I am a second place Pacific Northwest Master for 2024.
I
I
mean, there
mean,
you go. You know.
do you have it by you? We can show the world your illustrious spoon of woodness.
I'm not wearing pants, so I can't get up and get it.
That's smart. That's smart.
That
Because
saves the
the late
world.
I
ones
will
we
I will be
used the
honest.
video for this.
Uh,
That
Pure
thank you for your
Slanesh. Pure
honesty.
Slanesh.
like I'm wearing underwear. I'm not a barbarian,
No,
but
no, of
I
course not. Of
wasn't gonna
course
put on
not.
pants for this.
That is totally fair. Listen, man, that I get it. I get it. I get
No
it.
one needs maximum effort here, damn it. This is always strikes
No,
late, all right?
no, I'm wearing
Um,
pants only because I came in a little bit before we recorded. But
so
yeah,
Yeah,
so
okay,
I can put a picture of it in the Discord.
do it.
yeah.
Do it. So the the dice did not abide. Not
It
all games
happens.
come down to dice. It sounds like you Charles it up instead of Charles 2.0'd it up a little bit.
hmm
And then it comes
Mhm.
down to, I think, a question that I have quite a bit, and
Mm.
like more rumblings that I've heard, the more and more we talk with players about competitive play, and that's
Mm.
army choice now has become like a really big thing on what you can do to actually play competitively, which
hmm
To
Yeah.
me, I'm never big on that, right? Like every army, I want to be able to play when I want to play, right?
Yeah. Every army should
Um,
have their bullshit and be good and do their
yeah.
thing. And like, well, you
And
could do that? Yeah, of course. And so you could do that? Yeah, of course. That's the
and
best
there
Warhammer for me too.
Mhm.
there's definitely
Everyone
some
has their bullshit.
armies, yeah, but there's definitely some armies struggling right now. And I think
Yeah.
Slanesh is a one of them, right? Um, that being said, you got to Masters with Slanesh.
Yeah.
So like I'm
We
proud of
climbed the
you. I
mountain.
don't know how much that's worth, but I'm proud of you because like I don't
Yeah.
I don't know of anybody else that is A, crazy enough to try it, or B, good enough to actually do it, right?
That's true.
So that the fact that you made it there, you stuck to your guns on
Hmm.
the army choice, like that's ballsy, man. You get
Mhm.
all the props. That wooden
Yeah.
spoon should be golden as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But the that does bring up the question. It's like, what do you think Slanesh needs to be able to go
Mm.
to Masters and have what I would say, not just a chance, but feel like you're on an equal playing field?
Um, so I'm gonna noodle out loud. Uh,
Please.
Do it.
Floor is
so
yours.
my gut thought was, there needs to be more threes to wound. So threes and threes on like slick blades. The problem is that Slaanesh has multiple ways of getting +1 to wound, and so that
Mhm.
means
Hmm.
a lot of things would be threes and twos, too
Yeah.
overpowered. That
Yeah.
shouldn't exist in the game. Um,
Understood.
and so right now they're semi-fast. They, have weight of dice, but the most competitive builds actually don't play into that at all. The most competitive builds are tanky. They're Glutos, who's healing every round. They're
Mhm.
5
Yeah.
Twin Souls as the bodyguard, so they're reducing attacks by 2 by anything that comes in. They have a 5
Sure.
of war, 5 words everywhere. It's really based on this idea that you have 1 or maybe 2 shooting units, and then you're just tanking everything else. You
Hmm.
are protecting the shooting unit and letting it do what it needs, and just slowly forming a moving castle. But that's not Slaanesh, in my opinion, right? That's not how I see the army.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so
That's the theme.
that's, yeah. And so I mean, like thematically, they are getting abused and they love it. But so there's sensuality and everything.
Hmm.
But um, it's hard. The change in temptation dice was incredibly significant.
Mm.
To the point where it's worth taking euphoric units. Um, and it used to be worth it in some cases. Now it's 3 every time because there's a chance you still fail and you take mortals for it. And that wasn't the
Mhm.
case before. And so that's definitely a step in the right direction.
Hmm.
Um, I would love to see some of the kind of I'd love to see some point drops for anything that isn't a Slickblade Seeker or a Blissbarb Archer.
Yeah.
So literally anything else. I would love to see a point drop.
Yeah. What about
Um,
Demonettes? What about the chariots again?
Uh, there is no use for chariots. There's zero use for
Yeah.
chariots right now, and the chariot hero is garbage.
Yeah.
Um,
And
it
they've
used to be.
always been in a weird spot, right? They're always just overcosted for what they do. And
Mhm.
like it's one of the biggest disappointments and why I have that massive Slanesh army just sitting there. Like every time I pull them out, I'm like, man, I want to play this,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
Something I think that would be a healthy change is
Okay.
making euphoric count for companion attacks. And so lore
Mm.
wise, I think it's interesting. I don't know if it actually is. All of the mounts in Slanesh are actual chaos demons,
Yeah.
which is why they hit on threes and fours. They're the best mounts in the game.
mhm.
Yeah.
Instead of fives and threes or fives and fours, they are the
Yeah.
same exact profile as everything else in the army because they are the same type of demon. And so
Yeah.
thematically, it would make sense that, well, maybe they're not companions. I get they're still companions, they're still your friends, they're your buddies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Rules
the
wise.
the fact that most of the Slanesh War Scrolls don't benefit from you for so like the chariots, all of their attacks except for 2 whips
Yep.
are companion. Glutos,
Yeah.
every single melee profile is companion, which means he doesn't
Mm.
benefit from euphoric for them. He can't get crit mortals for
Yeah.
them. And so all across this army, it's
Huh.
companion, 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 and
Yeah.
their only battle trait is to give non-companion attacks crit 2.
Mm.
Yeah, so that there are some armies that feel like they were like, well, we're not going to think too much about this one,
Mm-hmm.
or like with Slanesh, they try and like over tech it, and that ends up making the army feel overcosted, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's really where Slanesh is. It's just it's overcosted. Everything costs
Yeah.
at least like 30 points more than it should.
Yeah.
It, I mean, even like even the archers to a degree, if you are using them, if you aren't mass using them in mass, right?
Hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
feel overcosted. If you just have one maxed out unit, that
Yeah.
still feels overcosted.
Yep.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I
I
mean,
will I will say that Slaanesh has some of the best heroes, like unique heroes in the game, the most beautiful ones.
Oh, the
My
models are fantastic.
The models are fantastic. And they're almost all pointed accordingly. It is the rest of the army that is
yeah,
pointed
Mm.
too high.
Yeah.
Shalaxi should be around 490. Glutos should be around 470 because of what they bring to the army or what.
All the extra
But
rules, the synergies.
everything else is overcosted by, I don't know if I'd say 30 points, maybe 29 points. Uh,
25. We keep it, on the five
Yeah.
point
This is an old
increments,
world. We're going by decimals here. All right.
right? No, the
Yeah,
other
okay.
thing, and like I'll continually whine about it, they need a cavalry support hero, not a pseudo cavalry. They need something
Yeah.
that almost every other army has, which is you strike, then our cavalry, which has damage too, can then strike immediately after you.
mhm.
Hmm.
Right? Like they need a little bit more synergy. And I get the whole like idea of, each model looks out for itself because they're all haughty and stuff, but they're too overpriced to be doing that. They're
Yep.
wearing too much gold,
If
man.
the elves can hang out with each other, Slanesh can go and give some buffs out too. All right,
Right?
listen.
Yep.
Illumineth, being a stuck up high elf, still can go out and be like, okay, hey, I'm going to support the troops and do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to cast my spells. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. We're going to have buffs. We're going to have Aether Courts to go and do mortal wounds or whatever the hell mechanics we have these days. Why can't we get more of that
And I
for
think
other armies?
when they get their glow up, they're gonna, Slanesh has infamously been the army that swings
That
like
pendulum
both ways
swings.
very hard, right?
Yeah.
So like I hope they get that hard swing to like the dominant side,
Hmm.
um, just across the board. I mean,
Hmm.
What?
crossing my
So
fingers.
we're saying a cavalry support here. What else? What would be like a dream unit? What would your heart's desire?
Hmm. I would love, not Heart's Desire,
Hmm.
because not a new unit. I want Slangor to be good. I want Slangor to be
That's
even
fair.
considerable. They are such a
Yeah,
cool model. They have
Yeah.
they
so much
are.
lore, and there's no reason to take them. And I have six beautifully painted ones that never see the table. And I want
Yep.
them because I was thinking like, okay, where do I fill this in? Well, I don't want another Horde unit because they don't do demonettes that well,
Yeah.
and you don't want a 40 person unit because
There's
it,
horde clearers out
yep,
there. There's
yep,
impact hits. There's spells that are like,
it's
oh,
not the right thing. And so I'm like,
nope.
oh, well, it's a
Hmm.
medium-sized demon. Well, there's fiends, and fiends
Yeah.
serve their purpose, but they're still 70
Pricey.
points a model.
Yeah, they're
And
Yeah.
too
then
no no no.
and then Slangor, I'm like, well, Slangor would fit perfectly as there's this beefy Ogroid type unit, or
Yeah.
I guess
Like a
beefling type
troll
unit.
esque, you
Yep.
get that heavy infantry style something.
And they just have nothing. They have nothing that would fill that role of this
Yeah.
that monstrous infantry that can take a hit and
Yeah.
still do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they
Uh,
they like I feel like Slangor, they wanted to be good even in the last book, right? Like they really wanted to be good. And there were some fun things I was able to do with them in that walking list.
Hmm.
okay.
Just teasing out any shooting from somebody, getting damage so that you can get a free move and then you've got a counter charge. now could be the thing that they could do, but they're still hitting on fours, right?
Mhm.
So they're like they have almost the reverse problem of the rest of the army, where like they're not consistently hitting with their low amount of attacks per guy.
Yeah.
So like you're paying a premium for this movement shenanigan, but
Yeah.
what are you getting into, right?
And then it does it
No,
feel
I
right to
feel
even
that.
put an all out attack on them when to trigger it? Like you said, they had to take damage, right? That's the
Yep.
Yeah, they
They're
have to
already
take
losing like a
damage to get the
model or
free move.
two.
Yeah.
Like, is it
And
worth it for that command point to
so
make
I'm
them be threes to hit?
and that comes down to the list build again, right? I
Yeah.
feel like I could see them being a great little counter charge, or like whoopsie daisies, I'm a screen now unit
Mhm.
in a walking list with Glutos,
Sure.
but like that's so niche
Yeah. And
that
how many points are
makes
they
the
these
unit.
days?
Oh, I don't know off the top
Too
of my
many.
head. Yeah, let me
Yeah.
see real quick.
Yeah, like, and even with, say, um, what's it called? Euphoric, they can run charge, which means they can redeploy and charge. So they could
Yeah.
redeploy, they could do their movement, they can
Yeah.
get right in your face and charge, which is something you could do with them, but they
Mhm.
get in and then they'll do nothing.
Yep.
They
Yeah.
they don't punch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's mildly disappointing. And the at least like they're not stuck on the weird keyword salad, if I remember correctly now. Like they
Okay.
get the basic benefits. Correct me if I'm wrong, Charles, but they
Oh,
get the basic benefits army wide. It's just
Mhm.
yeah.
kind of hard to justify them when they are
Well,
130 points, but you could also get, Painbringers or Twin Souls for that, right?
yeah.
And that's more
Yeah.
attacks, guaranteed heating on threes. You can get a
And
Ren
then units
2
of
with the
five instead of units of
Painbringers.
three. Just
Yep. So
how
that's
many wounds is a Slongard these days? Is it
they're
three?
three, if I remember correctly.
They
Let
are
me.
three each, yep.
Yep. Yeah.
Uh,
So there are
which is
three.
worse than any of the other heavy things in the army.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the other heavy things have 4+ saves, right?
Yeah.
So it really comes down to like there are
Hmm.
there are just kind of there's maybe like one or two niche situations where I see them being good, but that's
Yeah.
only in the very certain situations which an opponent who knows the war scroll will immediately see, right? And that like invalidates their use for me in the current situation that they're in,
Yeah.
until they're like 100 points, right? Put him at 100 points, cool. I'll take him as flank units. They can be my chaos spawn that go up the sides,
Mhm.
right? But like at
Sure.
130, they're in competition for like meat and potatoes of the army. And the rest of the army, again, I think we've underlined it enough, is not cheap. So like it's hard to justify taking points in this and even making it to 2,000 points even, right?
Sure.
It is actually
And,
really hard to get to Slanesh list to a 2,000 point even army.
Mhm.
and follow up question to you for the two Slanesh players. What's the Fane doing for you these days? Your scenery piece.
Oh,
Like
the
what are
Fane's
we
good. The Fane
Yeah,
is
Fane's really
good.
good.
so we have a positive here.
Oh
What's
yeah.
it doing for you?
So what
Fame real
happens with the
good.
Fane is that you choose a unit, a friendly unit wholly within 12, and
Hmm.
it takes D3 damage. You can't ward it. So
Hmm.
a little swingy. Three sucks on your small heroes, but you can heal it after. It's fine.
Sure, sure, sure.
You choose one of three benefits. +1 to wound in combat.
Hmm.
Fantastic, because you can put it on any unit wholly within 12.
Mm-hmm.
Um, +1 to cast and unbind until your start of next turn. +1 to
When the
unbind.
plus one to wound come off?
These
It
are also
doesn't.
your start of next turn.
Okay, okay, okay.
Um, so, but +1 to cast and unbind, +2 unbind is so rare.
Yeah,
And if you put it,
yeah.
what I do is I put it on the Keeper, on Shalaxir, and Glutos, and then I have two unbinds at +1.
There you
Mm-hmm.
go.
Or the third one is +1 to run, +1 to charge, which But really, I'm always using +1 cast, +1 unbind on my
Yeah,
two casters,
yeah,
and then just that plus to unbind is more games than I can count actually made the difference.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's
And to
wholly within,
cancel.
right?
Wholly within 12. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
wholly
And
within.
to cancel out the -1 to cast for
Yep.
counter casting theirs. It's always
Yep.
helpful, you know? Okay.
Yeah, so
So
it's so much better. Like they have tech options Like
Mhm.
that's the thing. That's the thing that makes Slanesh such an interesting army. And again, this is like kudos for you to making it to Masters playing exclusively Slanesh. Like
Yeah.
they have all this tech stuff, but this tech stuff takes a lot of mind goo to like
Mhm.
actually get working, right?
Yeah.
You have to be way advanced in your planning, and the moment something goes wrong, you are fighting an uphill battle no matter
Yeah.
what, because they are not a survivable army.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean, really when it comes down to it, you like, I don't want to say you earned the wooden spoon, but like you earned Masters, you know what I mean? um
Yeah, that's the takeaway here for me too. Is you
yeah.
still also, for at least most of your games, you had a workable game plan,
Hmm.
and you figured out how to crack the code. It was just sometimes dice weren't there, and then sometimes someone came up with something like, "Oh, I'm going to countercharge and kill your mask." That statistically shouldn't happen, but fuck it, I'm in that desperate of a situation. I'm going to try just screw you to start with, and go on.
Hmm.
You know.
So what's your plan for next year when you get
Yeah.
to
Moving
Masters? Because
forward.
we know you will.
Yeah.
I
How do we improve?
so for the audio listeners,
Mhm.
Rocco's wearing a Mets hat, and I was a
I
Mets
am.
fan growing up, which
Oh,
meant that many years, almost every single year,
love Blue
I
Moons,
was
baby.
told it's a rebuilding year. Uh,
Yep.
that is the
Yep.
phrase that sports teams use when they suck. Uh,
Hard. When
um,
it's bad,
Yep.
their owner don't want to spend no money. It's a rebuilding year. We'll go
it's
get them a young talent. We'll
yep.
draft really good. Have some
Well,
homegrown players in 3, 4 years. You'll love them. You'll
We'll go
love
to
them.
the
mhm.
farm.
Yeah.
And so where I'm at right now is as we talked about, the battle scroll should be hitting in a couple days.
Yep.
And I've done my tier list of what I think, like army wise, I'm going to play,
Mm.
and it's not going to be Slanesh for a bit. I
Okay.
like
That's
to I
fair.
What I like to do is I like to take armies 3 months at a time
Hmm.
and kind of give myself time to learn them. But normally I do it with a faction that's kind of subpar, or an army that's kind of subpar. So Slanesh or Flesh Eater Courts is my other army,
Mhm.
You
or my
poor
other
son of
main
a
one.
bitch.
Uh,
Okay.
the
Okay.
the the problem, quote unquote,
Yeah.
that Matt also has is that I own most of the armies. I own about 19 factions, over
Oh
2,000
wow.
points in them.
Okay.
A lot of it's painted, and so I have options. And right
Sure.
now, Slaves to Darkness is the new hotness,
It is.
and they didn't get points drops. They didn't get point increases. They actually got point drops. The new book
Yeah.
is better than the index. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's my top contender, but the struggle I have with it is
What?
it's a list that does one thing,
Uh-huh.
only one thing well right now. Nothing else is really I'm sure other people could do well, 3-2, maybe a 4-1 with other builds, but
Sure.
these top lists are doing the same exact thing. Maybe they're
Yep.
changing a unit out,
Uh-huh.
and all it does is that. The thing
Yeah.
is, there's no counter to it. And so all it does is that, and it wins. And so while
Mhm.
I could do that,
Where's the
I don't
fun?
know if where's the fun?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
And
Yeah.
so
that's I can hear Jack right now, just like uh-huh in his sleep. Just uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
angry.
yep.
But
And
I cut you off there.
It's
Go
a
ahead. Go ahead.
nosebleed. I don't know why. Someone's talking about my ears are ringing. I don't know.
Yeah.
and so with that, I have beautifully painted Bellicor, Vanguard, all my stuff. I posted in the Discords the stuff
Yeah.
I'm working on.
Yeah.
I'm really finishing up my Slaves to Darkness, but I don't want to play that way for 3 months, right? I don't want to play the
Mm.
same list, the same style, no matter what the battle plan is, no matter what my opponent is doing.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so I'm trying to tease out kind of what I do with it. And
Mm.
it may be I switch over to Zinch and actually try and learn that play style.
Yeah.
I want to stay away from Stormcast right now because it's just too saturated.
That's fair.
But
That's
I'm
fair.
really hoping that something significant happens in the battle scroll with
Mhm.
either Fire Slayers or Flesh Eater Courts. I would
Okay.
love, love, love to play Flesh Eater Courts. I do not know what they need to change. It's not just point decreases. There needs to be
Yeah.
some fundamental change. And then
Yeah.
Fire Slayers, I don't know. I
Fire
literally do
Slayers are
not
just
know.
fun.
They're fun, but
They're neat,
there's something fundamentally wrong with the army. And I
Hmm.
think it could
Yeah.
be solved by giving every single foot model an extra wound. So 3 wounds instead of 2, and then your heroes get 1. I think that would literally solve every issue that army has.
Yeah.
Could be. I
But
mean, they
then when do
have
you stop?
wards now just as standard, which is a big increase from
Yeah.
previous,
I
but
know.
their armor saves went down across the board.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
for me, that's why they're still sitting on the shelf and not getting any
Yep.
love, right?
They need another unit. They need like a mini cav unit or something.
Yeah, mini droths.
Yeah,
Little
give
mini
me
Mini
give me
droths.
some
drops.
baby. Give me Valkyries hucking javelins on mini draws, you
Some
know?
lava golems, something like that.
Lava golem.
Yeah.
I like a lava golem.
I feel like when they get love, hopefully it's
Mm.
something that expands their range in a way that isn't like a Warcry warband, but
Yeah.
actually gives them more defined ways to play that aren't just like
I'm gonna deep
take as
strike
many magma
22.
droths
Yeah.
as you can and pray, right?
Yeah.
Which seems to be the consensus lately from the Fire Slayer players I've
Hey, there's
seen.
also deep strike, two huge blobs.
Oh, that's my jam.
Just die.
But you don't get the huge blobs anymore. When you could deep strike 30 in and
Yeah.
you had just the weight of wounds and weight of
Yeah.
attacks, you were able to weather stuff. But now that you've lost the save and you just don't have reinforced units at 30 bodies, like they're
Nope.
not as survivable anymore. So
Mhm.
you're overcommitting in points to get them up on the field and pen something in. I've thought about Fire Slayers so much because I really do love the idea of how they play. It's
Yep.
just
Yep.
like Charles said, the war scrolls themselves, there's something off where nothing really works together in a way that it should.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
no, I agree. I think hopefully they'll get some love. But like
Yeah.
it's really interesting that the Crypty boys are still on the radar, right? Like
Yeah.
I know Charles was playing them for a long time there.
Okay.
Mhm.
What's
And
your go-to build? Are you more the monsters? You more the horde? You more the knights? What are you feeling?
Uh,
he was doing big boys.
I
Oh.
did like the big boys.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the standard list right now is, Usharan Cardinal,
Yep.
one sort of foot hero of some kind,
Mhm.
and then knights. That
Yeah.
is that is
All
the
the more
list.
bags specifically. If
All
you.
the Morbegs
Yep.
specifically because they have
Yep.
the armor save, because they're fast,
Yeah.
because they hit hard. I like
Giving a little impact wound never hurt nobody.
mhm. I like to throw at least one unit of 40 ghouls in,
Mhm.
because throwing 120 dice
It's always a
uh,
fun time.
is always a fun time.
Yes.
Especially if
If
you can
you're
get some
throwing the
buffs on it.
dice,
Yep.
not receiving them.
Um,
Mm.
and so that gives some weight of dice for those tankier units.
Yep.
Um, and then I was trying to figure out how to do the Manfred regiment in it, but
Okay.
there's very few ways to fit Usharon and Manfred
Mhm.
in at
Yeah.
the same time. And
Hmm.
that's kind of where I left it before realizing this just doesn't work until they get some changes.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Hey, you never know what'll happen. Our viewers and listeners will, because they'll probably be out before this drops. But for us right now in the present here,
Yep.
dear
Mhm.
listener, you never know. Again, that's bones of a good list. Manfred's Regiment has always been a very good one with the 6-inch deep striking.
Hmm.
And it
So
gives you time for the solar elements of your army to cross up the board and do what you need to do positionally.
that's true. And Usharon is nothing to be
Now, he's still a
shirking
Dark
at,
Souls
right?
raid boss. It's
Yep.
just,
Yeah, he's still insane.
can he last long enough?
I do wonder, and
What?
this is a question, only because I think you could pilot these with your style in general, especially after like the growth that you've had as a player,
Mhm,
Sure.
right?
mhm.
So there are two armies that immediately came to mind, and I'm very surprised that you didn't name either of them. The
What
first
do we got
one
here?
is your OG that I played you against, which is Daughters of Cain
Hmm.
with Marathi,
Sure.
Mm,
which
okay.
I do wonder if that we know that it's back and forth right now with whether or not it's like a good army or not. There are certain
Yeah.
builds that do well. There's most of the builds don't, right? It's in
Mhm.
that weird spot with them
It is.
4 and up wound.
Hmm.
And the second one is Ideneth Deepkin, which you had for a while. I'm very surprised that you didn't even
Okay.
look at them, to be honest.
I do have my item up right there.
Yep.
Um,
Love me
so
some wet elves, baby. All right, talk to me about
uh
some Deepkin.
so we got Deepkin, we got Daughters of Cain.
Okay. Okay.
The So for Daughters of Cain, it falls into the same trap as I have with Slanesh, in that
Oh.
it depends on average dice. There
Mhm.
are not a ton of ways to get around it. There's maybe one or two once per game things you can do to really guarantee something,
Mhm.
but you're not as fast as you need to be.
No.
You're still squishy. You're still only wounding on fours.
Mhm.
You're still dependent on getting multiple things charging at the same time. And the
Mhm.
Shadow Queen will survive, but even at, at 12 health, she's not powering through the big stuff. And
That's true.
so
No.
and so she's getting stuck in combat. And
Mm.
all of these things are happening where it average dice, it's a great army. It's a great army. And you can't rely on that.
Yeah, and
True.
the other thing too is with if you're playing off the blood rights table, this is also a deepkin problem in a sense. You got to be able to last to the later rounds to get the
Hmm.
better buffs.
Yep.
Hmm.
Is the game in a state where battle round 4 where you're +1 to hit and wound, you finally like, cool, I wound on a 3. Thank the gods of slaughter.
So,
Or are you just out of witch elves all of a sudden? You're like, well, Marathi has 1 wound left.
well, if you're playing all witch elves, then I don't know, man. I don't know already in that. Witch elves, for me, have never seemed to take the cake since second edition. They
It's
just
snakes,
they kind
baby.
of fell
It's
off.
snakes.
Yeah, snakes are fun. That being
Hmm.
said, it's an incredibly hard list to pilot too. The amount
Oh
of work
yeah.
that you have to do. Um, yeah, so all valid points in Daughters of Cain. Now,
Yep.
talk to me about Ideneth, who's the secret scary faction. The most scary faction I've ever played against him is when he was
Hmm.
playing Ideneth
Hmm.
Yeah.
because it
Um,
fits that play style.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Idoneth, it plays a lot like it did in second edition right now, which is
Go on.
you position for turn one,
Yeah.
you set up the charge turn two,
Hmm.
and you can either kill everything turn two or kill everything turn three. The
Mhm.
problem,
Speaking my language.
the problem here is that
Wow.
armor saves are so tanky in the current meta. We have the
Yes.
Stormcast, we have the OBR, we have the slaves.
Yeah.
Three
Yep.
Because
ups. Some of them are one ups when you get all the buffs in.
and
Um,
didn't they do a whole big thing about how they readjusted all the saves so the 4-up would be the regular one again, and then
Yeah,
mhm,
but we
and
need
then
to
here
sell
we are.
Stormcast. The Stormcast need to sell.
mhm.
We need to spend all your money on
Hey, I love Stormcast, but I'm just
Stormcast.
saying
Yep.
they
And
need to they
so,
need to eat shit into a mortal wound. That's all I'm saying.
yep.
Dude, I crap my pants when I found out my Paladors had 3 and up saves. Like I was like, no, this is a misprint. Come on now. This is wrong.
We're
So,
Vanguard Chamber, man. What do you mean?
so we have all these high saves, wound dense models that are in the
Yeah,
top of the meta,
yeah.
which means that to kill anything, you're committing at least 2 units.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
One reinforced unit of eels probably isn't going to do it
No.
because there's in high rend.
Yeah.
Um, and so there are ways to reduce save with spellcasting and things like that, and those are all great. But you can kill one big unit a turn with
Mm-hmm.
Ideneth.
Mm-hmm.
You can try and kill a lot of little units with deep striking reavers, big block. That's pretty common right now, where
Yeah.
it's at least 1 unit of 20 in the Ether Sea and
Yep.
things
Hmm.
like that.
Surprise, motherfucker. Shoot him. Yep.
And
Yep.
you
Yep.
can
Yep.
protect yourself with the turtle and the boat and getting all your own kind of save stacking and ward stacking buffs.
Mm-hmm.
And when things can just sit on points
Yep.
and you have to charge in and you can only kill one, maybe 1.5 units a turn, and you're fragile on the strike on the clapback, you
Hmm.
need to play for the double 2 to 3.
Yes.
And
That is IDK's bread and butter to the double 2 to
IDK's
3.
Hmm.
and that only works half the time, if even.
Yep.
right?
Oh yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and so it's just again one of those armies where you have to play it really well for it to be a top army, and the dice have to go your way. And
Okay.
right now, there are armies that don't need those two things.
So let me tell you of a list because I hear you. I hear you. I share your concerns. And
Sure.
that's why I went to Zinch myself very recently, not months now, but
Everyone's coming to chaos and
a
my
friend,
beast left.
yes,
Ugh.
but a friend of mine online he goes by Bobo, and I jokingly call him Bobo, 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 Bobo. He has given to me a Deepkin list he's been using. He keeps dancing around like trying to join the Canadian national team, and he's done a bunch of GTs and gone off on like a crazy tear. I think he
Hmm.
ended up being like 25-2 with this list.
Whoa,
That
that's pretty
so
good.
it's a Killian again. We'll see what points pending. Is going
Yep.
to be my phrase for this. It's two trap Deepkin list. His Bobo here was a big ogre player. Loved his monster trucks. It's the class, that everyone would joke about, the destruction retirement. Where's my 5 up board? And he's like, I'm gonna recreate this in Deepkin. I'm like, what do you mean you're recreating this in Deepkin? He's got an Eidolon aspect of the sea with a turtle and 3 defensive eels, the Chilean guard.
Hmm.
Second thing is an aspect of the storm, a turtle, 3 defensive eels. That's the whole list. Morbid Conjuration, Lure of the Deep. Just be a 2-drop to be if you want to take the turn or be defensive. The Beastmasters goes to buff the mounts, and
Mhm.
you're just beating the snot out of things with a 5-up ward save on a turtle.
Hmm.
And when you need to be defensive, you got a screen of the Chilean eels that when they charge you, you get your 5-up ward again.
Hmm.
And I would again, as a Deepkin player, no, we hit fast, we hit hard. They're dead by turn 2, and by turn 3, we got to clean up round of always strikes first. All right,
Mhm.
that's my mindset. And going double turtle, double, God forbid, double Eidolon in any other previous iteration of this army,
Yeah.
Yep.
you'd be giggling. But again, with the plus to wound from the aspect of the storm, the aspect of the sea is a decent spellcaster
Yep.
Yep.
nowadays.
With a teleport spell,
Mm-hmm.
really important.
Mhm.
Yep. And the turtles still have good shooting that's anti-monster for when you've got these monster riding heroes going around every once in a while
Hmm.
to knock them on their ass. If I see Techless, cool, dude. Harpoon them. And you're doing your 2 or 3 damage or whatever it is. Turtle still has 7 attacks. It still slaps.
Mhm. The
Yeah.
turtle's still scary.
Yeah, 7 attacks on the fins and the jaws, still crit mortal to get around any kind of weird wounding there.
Hmm.
Well, for there, it's the 4 to hit, but it's an interesting list idea. I don't know that I would personally ever myself buy. It's making me question about buying a second turtle. I'm just being honest with you. So
Well,
maybe there's ways.
and maybe that reaches into a lot of the other things, like you were even saying about Slanesh. The other competitive build is the slow walk. Maybe it's our preconceived biases
Sure.
that are holding us back on list building, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will
Uh,
say, with Deepkin, with just a small amount of point drops, you
Yeah,
can fit 4 turtles and 1 foot hero. And if you
I
customize
love
that
that
foot
list so
hero,
much.
you customize that foot hero to be a Skaven fish person, you
Yep,
just have the Ninja Turtles.
yep.
yeah,
That's the
that's
whole list.
perfect.
It's
That's all you need, really.
It's a
Now,
one drop.
I've done that
what's
meme
their
list on
what's their
TTS
control
so many
score?
times. It's for turtles because it's
Yeah,
the mon. I mean, I'll double check. Leviathan is a control 5.
and there you go. If you just kill enough with the Leviathan, you're good to go.
Yep.
Oh,
Also,
it's so
you can make
goofy.
your triangle really easy with 4 freaking turtles.
I think that's a
I'm
Yep,
square.
just saying. Just
it's a
saying.
square. It's a square 18-inch shooting, babe. You got to come up to me. We got Ren 1 3 damage shots. Ren 2 if you're a monster.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it is our notions of how building lists should be is a
Yeah,
thing, right? Like I
but
know our meta in Pacific Northwest is nasty. Like
mhm.
the 3-and-up, 2-and-up, 1-and-up saves is ridiculous. But
Hmm.
Yep. And
eventually it's gonna be like, there's gonna be something else that'll take that.
Yeah, and he recreated the old Stonehorn output and
Yeah.
defensive measures in Deepkin somehow,
Yeah.
and it works. You know, it's fine. He played Moneyball with elves. Billy Bean, what are we doing here?
So it does make me wonder, like maybe there is something in, in the Crypty Boys or the Naked Dwarfs that we don't quite see yet. And once the battle scroll comes in and we get those points changes, there's like an alternative build out there, right?
Hmm.
There's something that we can do. It's like, because I got to be honest, like those two, if those are the ones that you're hoping for, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I
Might be some
know,
sauce.
There's a reason my slaves are getting ready right now. Like there's if the battle scroll does not giveth, then the slaves will cometh.
Yep. And to correct, I might have misspoken. I want to make sure because the defensive fields get the ward if it charged in the same turn. I might have misspoken, said if it didn't. But and they still have the -1 to attacks characteristics. It's a good army.
Hmm.
I wish I miss my
Mhm.
sharks, but still,
yeah, I mean,
there's new ways to
changes,
think about all this stuff
changes, and
now.
changes, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
And meanwhile, I'm just gonna bring my Famir for the next 4 years.
you're just gonna keep proxying and it's different shit.
Uh,
So what?
Oh,
no, I mean, right now all I'm building is KO. So like I'm
Okay.
off the deep end, you know. I'm way off the deep end.
Ooh.
So
talking about proxying, I have two Chaos War Shrines right next to me.
oh boy, you
They're
and
both
Jack will
fully
have a
painted.
field
They're
day.
both fully painted. I have no idea what to do with them. You can't just, I mean, I can just throw out the model, but it's not even in the old world. There's
Listen,
nothing to do with
Charlie
this.
Brown.
Mutilith,
Mutilith, yeah,
Mutilith,
I
Mutilith,
guess.
and just put a couple axes on the other one, and then you got your other one.
Slaughter
Aren't
Brute.
those the two
Yep.
schmucks pulling Glutos around too? Like the two Spawnish ogre.
So I have it right next to my Mortis engine for lack
Okay.
of space.
Okay.
And I consider doing a 3 Mortis engine Slaves to Darkness
Ooh,
list and
that's
just counting them
interesting.
like that.
Yeah.
Dude, I am so kind of actually terrified of the Mortis engine going away. That is one of my favorite models.
Yeah.
Really?
When new Soul Blight comes out, and like Mortis engine has been a staple of my Soul Blight list forever. It's not
Mm,
as good now.
mm.
Um, but like, man, kitty, it's kitty time. Time for cats.
He has a
Okay.
bow
Cool.
tie.
Oh, wow. Ooh, fancy. Very nice.
Well, I think we've come to a good place, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Did we?
I
Yeah, I
think
think you're
so.
right.
I think we heard about some trials, some tribulations,
Mhm.
some unapologetically bad dice rolls,
Yeah.
some good choices that dice rolls ruined.
Mhm. We've
Um,
learned, we learned
mhm.
some things. We learned from some mistakes, some things we wouldn't do again, some things we do again anyway because it was still the right choice.
Hmm.
I think we might have learned to believe in ourselves a little bit too along the way and take the win at least that, hey man, you made masters,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. No, I was feeling down on myself at the end of it.
Mm.
And I got a Discord message from Kenrick at Warp Dice, so
Okay.
Saga of Dice
Yeah.
channel.
Mhm.
And he's just like, "Hey man, congrats on being there, congrats on doing this." And I replied in like a down on myself message, like, "No, like the worst of the best is still an amazing thing. Like you should be
Yeah.
proud." And that
Yeah.
definitely
100%.
You still beat out
boost.
hundreds of other players to get there.
Yep. And so
Yeah.
that boosted my spirit. So if he listens to this, thank you, Kenrick. But I'm not
There
going to
you
tell you
go.
that.
And then, all right. So, on
Well,
that uplifting message,
yeah.
it's time for the last word.
Where do we think we're gonna land on
I don't know.
Zeusophone.